Let me just now move to closing our forum. The first thing I want to do, as I usually do at this time, is just reflect on a few of the sessions I was in this morning very, very briefly, and just give you the highlight things that I thought really would make a difference to the work that we at Energy Consumers Australia will be doing on these issues over the next 12 months. And from this morning's session on the EDUM, apart from actually all of us meeting a data maven, and for those that don't know, maven is the Yiddish word for one who understands profoundly. I think young Adam Berry from CSIRO is someone whom I am really glad is working in this sector on these issues on behalf of all of us, a remarkable young fellow. But from that session, I thought the most profound statement was, if we don't know the customers really well, we're likely to get it really wrong. And I think that is just so true. It will take me to some homework that I'm going to give you in a little while, as I want to do. In our session on data for networks, I thought Mark Henley actually made an unbelievably important point, which is, as we get busy collecting data, we must not forget to collect the data that's not easy to collect, which is the data on those people who have already been left behind. Going off the grid is not about getting panels and batteries for some people, it's about sleeping in your car. So that to me was very, very important. It's the known unknowns, I think, to continue that theme. We've got to make really sure we don't leave anybody behind on this data journey. And the second point is the question Mark asked is, what do we want from the data? The answer being the simple word action. So what we want is jam today, thank you, not jam tomorrow. So they were just a couple of the things. There's many, many other points that really struck me, and I'm sure many points that really struck you. To the homework on the issue of really understanding consumers, and some of you have heard me on this before. I read 2 books over summer by Michael Lewis, who has a series of books he wrote about the global financial crisis, really unpacking that in taking quite technical matters and making them very simple. He's recently written 2 books. One is called The Fifth Risk. It's about policy and regulation in Trump's America. It's extremely interesting, and there are 2 chapters on energy, and they go to the important role of policymakers and regulation. The second is a book called The Undoing Project, and the reason I mention it, apart from the fact that it's absolutely essential for people really trying to understand consumers and how they make decisions, is that we had a discussion today which said, if you can't rely on the rules of thumb about how decisions are being made because we're in times of great uncertainty, then you need to get evidence. And the Undoing Project is the story of 2 Israeli psychologists, Kahneman and Tversky, and the work that they did, which wound up with a Nobel Prize in economics for behavioural economics. Undoing is about undoing old ways of thinking about decision making using the evidence of how people actually make decisions. It's a profoundly important book for the work that we're all doing. Which brings me to my closing remarks in regard to next year's forum and just a brief wrap up on this year's forum. Next year we're going to do a piece of work which we think is extremely important. It's going to be a consumer-led vision for a future energy ecosystem. If you're interested in participating in this project in the way that many people assisted us in pulling together this forum on data, this particular work will be led by Chris Alexander from Energy Consumers Australia. But if you are interested, you need to understand that participating in this work will require you to step into the shoes of consumers. It won't be about bringing all the knowledge you have from your corner of the world and jamming it into this process. It will be about starting where the consumers are and working to imagine, envision an energy ecosystem from their perspective. So we're planning to do this work by speaking with those of you who want to be part of this work, by speaking with consumers directly about their vision, and by speaking with leading thinkers around the world as we try to pull this together. At Foresighting Forum 2020, we'll use a resource that we'll pull together after we've done that work to understand and explore the consumer vision and what that means for policy, for regulation, competition, regulation of monopolies, consumer protection, and for funding, investment and business models and the like. It's really an important piece of work, and we've been talking about it for about 12 months one way or another, but I became aware of the absolute imperative of this work when David Havett, in a moment of utter frustration with the sector, decided that he was going to pull together a series of A3 charts, and I'm offering to share these, David, with anyone who's interested. So you might like to take any grenades that you've left in there out. So it's these spreadsheets go through the Finkel report and where we're at with all those recommendations, the ACCC report and where we're at with all those recommendations, the insight that we can have to Energy Council through the communique and the series of recommendations and all the work going on there, the AEMC and its strategic priorities work, and a range of other pieces. So David brought this to me and said, look at all this work. You know, we've got to coordinate and make progress and so on. I said, David, the only thing that I can see by looking at that pile of work is that we're not going to get there from here. We're actually going to have to start at another place, and I think it's the consumer perspective. So the piece of work we're going to do this year is a kind of a counterpoint. It's not to say that we're going to absent ourselves from those important discussions and pieces of work, but it's a counterpoint where we start with what do the consumers expect from this sector and how do we get to that point. So we'd be really pleased, given my proviso, of course, for any of you who are interested to join us in that work. Now I'd just like to say a series of thank yous, firstly, and I'm sure you'll want to join me in this, to the ECA staff who have worked together on the Foresighting Forum 19. We do it ourselves, both the content and the execution, because we like to be deeply engaged in this forum. It guides our thinking, it puts us in touch with all of you and each other. It's really a critical activity for us. So there are many names. I'm not going to go through them all, but would you join me in thanking the ECA staff for Foresighting Forum 19? And then, of course, I would like to thank our presenters, our panellists, our chairs, and our two network event sponsors, Maddox and KPMG. Without the content and the support for the conversation, we wouldn't have had nearly so much fun, and our brains wouldn't be nearly as tired as they all are now. So please thank me in join me in thanking. Demonstration of tired brain. Join me in thanking our presenters, panellists, chairs, Maddox and KPMG. And then our event organiser extraordinaire, who comes complete with slow, I have never seen Angela in slow mode, but nonetheless she comes, and Elizabeth comes with slow and stop. And David is just in a second, I know he's going to turn that around to stop and wave it at me. It's really been a very successful forum, Angela, and that requires all sorts of attention to details, a bit like energy consumers that none of us want to think about. So thank you for thinking about all of those things and giving us a great time. And lastly, to everybody in the room, I just wanted to say from my own perspective, I think that there has been a real shift in focus across the sector and in our discussions. And that shift in focus, I think, is undeniably to everyone sharing a focus on how and what do we have to do to get better outcomes for energy consumers. No one is satisfied with where we are now, not the consumers, not the industry, not the policymakers. And I think the shift in focus to better outcomes for energy consumers is really important and very, very obvious. Of course, there is much more work needed, and for people to really feel confidence in the sector, we need to get some runs on the board. But I have no doubt that we will do this, and we will do this by working better together. Foresighting Forum, I think 19, has played a role on a very important issue. I hope we've given you contacts and content that will enable you in your work to take this issue forward with that focus on better outcomes for energy consumers. In regard to Foresighting Forum 20, I just want to share a little secret with you. I know that when I get back to the office, after we've all calmed down on Monday, that I'm going to be subject to significant pressure to move this event to another forum and invite another 200 of my nearest and dearest friends. The secret that I'm going to share with you is that I have no intention of doing that. So if you want to make sure that you're here next year, jump in early. As soon as you see it, let us know that you'd like to come. We'd love to see you. Thank you very much.